shut up. Seriously.
Hey,
I think
how
it's
we
working,
doing?
right? Okay,
We're
I
on.
think we're good. Did you see the little countdown thingy to 30 seconds or not?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
How do you know if
Good
meant to
music.
like time this? I kind of
Pardon?
expect it to go 30 seconds and then boom, everybody's in like by themselves.
Oh, right. No, you have to do some work.
Yeah, clearly. Anyway, so Steve, I think we're live on air. Please do not swear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That
I
goes
think
for
we're.
you as well, though. You're the one with
Say
the potty
again?
mouth, aren't you?
I'm sorry. No, not me. No, really not me. Right, so just make sure. So we've got so far 4 people. So comments. Okay, so we've got. Do you get to see comments? Sorry, guys, whoever's watching, just making sure we are kind of on there. Do you get to see comments, Steve?
Technical issues, all right. Thanks, guys, for your patience.
Do you
Yeah, I've
get
got
to
the
see?
comments. I've got them, yeah.
Yeah, okay, couple. That's fine. That's fine. So hi, guys.
Hello.
Here.
Hello. We've got Annie Green, and we've got Beer Weasel.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I always wondered the beer weasel. He said the beer guy. Do you like beer? And
I think that's just their first name.
Right, should we give it like a couple minutes until
Yeah.
anyone else joins?
The guys that are in the chat. Oh, hi Dan. The guys
me.
that are in the chat. Can you hear us and see us? Give us a 5x5. That's what everyone normally asks for.
5x5. What does that mean?
Yeah, 5x5. Yeah, five for sound, 5 for video. Can you
Oh, I see.
see and hear us?
I'm new to that. Sorry.
What do I look like? I'm leaning over here. There we go.
Somebody else joining in. That's good.
They're all joining.
Yeah.
Can you hear and see us? Anyone?
I assume they are.
Loud and clear. Brilliant. Thank you, Robin.
Annie Green, thank you. 5-5. Thank you.
Perfect.
It's been, you know what? It's been like 11 months. I looked at my live stream. 11 months since I did the live stream.
Really?
Yeah. Do you know what? It's kind of like I started, it was great, and then the toddler got a bit older, and it's just the time, and by the time it's evening time, I'm like, you know what? I just glass of wine and go to sleep.
It's stressful too. It's so much easier just to edit.
It is though, isn't it? It is in a way, but I think some people like to, whoever's like to watch.
I've done one live stream on my channel, only one, and I really enjoyed it. I was really nervous. But everyone was so helpful, and it's just nice to engage with subscribers as well, like live. Whereas you can't when you upload a video, you can't engage live.
No.
So it's nice.
No, absolutely. Okay, well, hopefully, maybe you have one of few to come, one of many. I don't know, but nonetheless. So anyway, I think where we are now, 6 minutes past. Okay, so anyway. Dan's getting impatient. Yeah, all good. Yeah, all good. Let's go. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's go with it then, shall we?
Yeah, go for it.
It is 6 minutes past. So for any of you guys who not aware, obviously we met Steve at the Bushcraft show, haven't we? We've been invited all us to a prepper zone to do basically demonstrations and talks about stuff. So I talked about my usual stuff, not the tins. No, I talked about the food preservation. And Steve, you talked about.
I was invited up by Lee from the Bug Out store to talk about solar power and off-grid comms. And it was all a real kind of last-minute thing, and I'd never even heard of the Bushcraft show. And I was like, "What is this? What have I got to do?" Yeah, it was mad panic, but it was really good. Really good.
We had a bit of fun and it's pretty much pissed up in the field, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Although I don't drink, so I watched you lot get pissed.
You still could be pissed up, but non-alcoholic stuff pissed up, couldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's really good fun.
But it was good, though, wasn't it? It was good. But anyway, for all of you guys who are not aware, but so Steve, you are obviously a fellow prepper, aren't you? So you do pretty much what the preppers do, but with a slight angle, like we all do, don't you?
Yeah, so I run it's a small channel called Everyday Prepper. I've been doing it since last November, and I try not to fearmonger, try not to do all the scaremongering. Although there is a lot of scary stuff going on in the world right now, but I focus on or have been focusing on solar power because I've just got a lot of solar power at my house, and off-grid comms and that kind of stuff, and generally prepping from a UK perspective. That's what I'm about.
Yeah. So what initially, like, I know it's a weird thing, and probably many people really ask the question, but what did get you into the prepping in the first place? Did you have that little thing, or did you just kind of do this all along from the start because that's what you did, kind of thing?
It's weird. It's transformed over the years. I mean, it was, I mean, I've always been into DIY, and years ago I was in the Cubs and I was in the Scouts, and their motto is "Be prepared" and all that sort of thing. But and I've always been interested in like military gear and stuff. I've never been in the military, but I've always been interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
excuse me, I'm going to move you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm over here.
Sorry.
Hello.
Meant to do that, forgotten.
That's
Sorry,
cool.
guys.
That's cool.
Sorry.
So yeah.
That's a little boss side, yeah.
So I've always been interested in military from a combat perspective and that sort of stuff. And when everything was kicking off with North Korea, about 15 years ago, maybe even more, long time ago.
Yeah.
I started thinking, what would I do? And I started imagining certain scenarios, and then your mind kind of plays it all out, and it's like, well, if this was to happen, what would I do? If this was to happen, what would I do? And I started looking into prepping then, and that was before YouTube. So we didn't really have YouTube. We had Wikipedia, I think, possibly had come out then. There was a few websites out and about, but there wasn't a great deal of stuff about prepping, and a lot of it was a bit wayward. It was a bit nuts. So you kind of just had to make it up as you go along, and it's just evolved over the years, really. Then I got into solar power, and it sort of all went from there.
Yeah. So obviously you do everything as well on the top of the solar power too. I suppose the best of the abilities. I suppose like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyday prepping, yeah.
Everyday prepping, yeah. I mean, there was one particular site. I don't even know if it's still up. I don't remember the address now. This particular web page, and they sold a few things online, but this was before YouTube, before there was loads of prepping stuff and loads of info on the internet, and I got a lot of information from there, and it was talking about bugging out. That's when I learned terms like that for the first time, like bug out.
Yeah. American terms, really, aren't they?
Yeah, very American. It was. I think it was an American website. And I started just learning about what prepping really is, and then it linked it into bushcraft as well. There was lots of bushcraft stuff, which was funny, really. I hadn't really kind of joined the two up. And then, of course, as soon as YouTube came online and changed into or morphed into what it is now, then my prepping accelerated, especially over the lockdowns and all the pandemic stuff. I then thought, I saw the big queues outside supermarkets. I saw, people fighting in shops over toilet roll and stuff like that. And I thought, you can just see how things could degrade fairly quickly. And so I looked into prepping a lot more over that period of time, and then went through all the basics. But since then, I've got more of a routine approach to prepping. So my everyday approach is kind of
like a way of life approach.
Yeah, it is. It's looking at your own day-to-day routines, and that's what I recommend on my channel for anyone looking into prepping for the first time. Is where do you start? What do I prep for? Do I prep for a meteor, or do I prep for nuclear war, or do I prep for grid? It's like you can't prep for all those things individually.
No,
you just
not in one go. You couldn't
have a general idea, and then you can specialize if you want to. So I always advocate for the look at your daily routine, look at what might disrupt it most.
Yeah.
And for me, it would be probably no electricity, because everything we do is just electric. And of course, that ties in well with my solar power project.
Demonstration, yeah. But do you agree though with the prepping part that whatever? I think a lot of people, again, obviously we have a lot of people joining the channel, with both that people are really a bit unsure the starting point, and I think that a lot of the prepping, the journey really still comes down to whatever you're prepping for. It still really comes down to the basics of pretty much like light, heating, food, water, shelter, isn't it? It's kind of generally still has the whatever you end up in depth preparing for. The basics are you have to still make sure you're watered, you're fed, and you have a shelter over your head, don't you? It's kind of it's just the basics of the kind of preparedness, isn't it?
Definitely.
And then there's so many more, like you said, mentioned the bugging out. Isn't there so many, like watching the Americans, there's so many of these people, like, oh my god, I'm gonna like go and bug out, and we're gonna like sleep in the bushes, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of us in the UK, I think, find it somewhat nervy and a little bit kind of a bit unhappy with, because it's not something you can suddenly think, oh, let's just go and take a bag and, you know, go sleep in the bush. You know, a lot of people have families, have children. You can't just suddenly go, oh, just you know, let's go, we're going to bug out in the bush and do what exactly. You know, if you have to evade the area, we're all going to just go and do that kind of thing and just run into the bushes for what reason? You know, hunt for the same squirrels, isn't it? It's just,
I think
it's
bugging
daft,
out.
isn't it?
It's a very American term, and
Yeah.
all the prepping stuff that I came across when I was learning about prepping was all about bugging out. And I looked into bugging out, and really in the UK, it's totally unrealistic. All land is owned. So if you're going to bug out, you're going to end up in someone's garden at the end of the day. That's it. You know, you're going to end up with a landowner. Get off my land, and you know, so it just doesn't work. So bugging in is definitely preferable. So you've got to have everything, and have the facilities to be able to adapt in your house and change your house to as those needs develop, kind of thing. If you're bugging out, you won't be bugging out and living in the woods, but you might be hunting or foraging or gathering resources in the woods, which in the UK, the resources out in the world are going to be diminished very, very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, in an SHTF. So you want to try and hoard as much as you can, really, ideally.
Yeah. I totally agree, because I think that's what I'm saying. That people say they're bugging out. It's like, well, if you have to leave the area for some reason, you're all going to go to the same place if there is place to be. And then it's like, you're better off sticking around and growing yourself some microgreens and do your own garden type thing, isn't it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, I mean, there could be some events, and you know, we see it play out around the world where there's enforced evacuations. So they literally go around and they will force you out of your homes to make sure you're safe. And there's people digging their heels in, saying, "No, I'm going to stay till the end," and then they get burned down with their house and stuff. You know, these wildfires. You know, unlikely. Really, those scenarios are unlikely. Hurricanes, tornado alley, and all that sort of thing, and wildfires, very rare in the UK. Could happen and do happen, but not anywhere near the scale that they do in the States. So yeah. So
but you know what? Sorry, go on.
I'm all for bugging in.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, you said about people staying where they are. Do you know what? I don't know if people hear relevant. I think somewhat to teeny may be relevant, but in the Chernobyl, you know, after the thingy, after the explosion, actually some people actually refused to leave the land. And there was, I don't know if anybody's seen the documentary. I don't know how you went to try to find this, but apparently there's a people that actually got left behind that refused to leave the area. And it was a guy with the dogs, and he lived there for years. The radiation levels were low, but he was still living there. There's apparently still like trees growing, everything growing there, and he refused to live, and he was still okay. Obviously, nobody can project if he ever to reproduce with with the other human being type thing. But the fact is, he was still living there. He refused to leave the area, and he was living like kind of happily. So it's like he refused to bug out and refused to leave. But it's people's choices, isn't it? What people choose to do.
That's my ideal situation. Imagine that. No people, just all the resources for you, and you just live your life as you want and do exactly what you want anytime you want. That'd be great.
Yeah, Steve, would you still take this into radiation area by yourself, or no radiation and hundreds of other people? What would you go for?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's a really, really like safest choice.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, if the guy's okay, that says a lot, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. but no, joking aside, though, it's a toughie anyway, isn't it? But hopefully, we really all, I think as a preppers, we all hope we never really have to come to that kind of thing ever again, do we? No. But the question is again, the solar stuff. Why solar is the first thing? Is it because you think the power is we can't do without? Is that what you're?
No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. You know, if you're starting prepping, I do not recommend that your first thing you do when you get prepping is get yourself a solar panel and a battery. Absolutely not. Yeah. Get yourself some food stashed away and water stashed away. You know, start with 3 days, start with a week, and then 2 weeks, then 3 months, and then a year. Yeah. Aim for a year, ideally. Get all of that first. Yeah, absolutely. But if we were without power for a long period of time, I know for me personally, even if it was not a national power outage, like it was, like a regional outage, but it was for a long time, and they had to get a whole substation rebuilt or something happened, and they couldn't restore power for a long time. It would be massively disruptive, especially if there was no gas as well, because you got to cook. You'd be lighting fires. The whole neighbourhood, trees would go down. I don't think people realise, and
No.
we're pretty tightly packed in the UK. There's a big population for a very small amount of land, and the resources would go really, really quickly.
Do you think though, considering that, to be fair, like even I'm thinking, like say we live in a village, right? It's quite a remote village. We kind of have trees, and within a close vicinity we have, mountains and trees and rivers, that kind of thing. But I'm just thinking, like looking around, and villages generally, especially Welsh villages, kind of a lot of elderly people there, kind of thing. And I'm saying we're talking about sort of the resources. How many people do you actually think to even have an axe to be able to go and chop the tree down and fire up your wood burner? That kind of thing. I'm like, well, chances are probably not a lot.
No, not a lot. But all those people, let's be brutal, all those people would die who haven't got the facilities to get those resources. They would just die off really quickly in a complete grid down. They would just die off. Those people that do have the axes, it might be only a few people in the village, would absolutely decimate your village within weeks.
Yeah,
they'd be gone. There'd be nothing. There'd be no trees left. Trust me, they'd be gone. And they'll be gone up in smoke. Especially if it was winter time. If it was during the summer, it might be slightly different. But people are still going to want to cook. So they'll be using fires to cook. Once all their, if they are preppers and they've got some gas and they've got all those other bits and pieces, they might use those. But eventually, it's going to run out over a period of time. So it's
a tricky one, isn't it?
It is a tough one. It's a tough one. In the UK, how much? Eventually everything runs out, and then you will have people literally running the streets and raiding houses, and things like that. Yeah. But we're talking a really extreme situation, which I think would be even if there was a major conflict that hit our shores, I think it would be unlikely for the masses to be running around the streets in complete degradation. I could be wrong. But
it's going to be a matter of time, though, surely. It's a matter of time until the people are going to shit themselves once they go to the supermarkets and suddenly just realize maybe. Because what we said, I've done the video and I think you probably mentioned that as well. In the supermarkets, they have literally 3 days roughly for the supermarkets to have enough food to supply for people in the vicinity. And then it's 3 weeks in a supermarket warehouses, 3 weeks for literally in UK for the supermarket to supply a specific area. So we literally really are within, say, 3 weeks just in the normal purchasing power, but within, say, 3 weeks, if we are panicky, people are buying stuff left, right, and centre. We're probably talking about really within 5 days, maybe the stuff just going to be whoosh.
Oh yeah, they'll be looting within a week, definitely. I mean, we've heard the phrase that we're 3 meals away from anarchy.
That's it.
So you miss 3 meals.
I've seen this a lot in the American ones, and some UK ones started to mention that. But
yeah, it won't take much. If you've got people who are actually hungry through not through choice, and don't know where their next meal is going to come from, then things will get violent. You only have to look at countries that are experiencing famine. Like some of the African countries, like Sierra Leone and Nigeria and places like that, even Kenya, and I'm sure there's some others that I've forgotten. But they've got no rule of law. Some of these places, so they've literally just got militants running around looting people's houses for resources, and the people are left with nothing, and they're just left to die of starvation. And it's happening in an uncomfortably large amount of places around the world, really. I think so. For that to happen in the UK, I think is unlikely. But it would only take one big thing
to do
for it to go bad. Yeah. So I'm not saying that having power like having my solar panels on my roof is going to save my life and save the day, and I'll be I'll be the king of England, by tomorrow, kind of thing. Not going to work. It's not a be all and end all. But what it does mean is that I can run some electronics, I can have some lighting, and it will just make my life hopefully a little bit more comfortable while I'm running around trying to chop everyone's trees down. I'm
just responding to just one thing you mentioned about the what did you say? Oh, about the government or people looting the houses, right? It's some people have been mentioning watching the channel. I'm sure that it's kind of come across the all the channels in terms of saying we are preppers, right? We are apparently in the limelight of that, right? And because in America they say, oh, well, the female can come in and take stuff. If it's an emergency, they can come and take your prep. So people are like, oh my God, you know, people in UK and government can come and take your preps. Well, I've done some research on that, right? I've done some research looking in and to say whether what it is the power that they have, really, be it written or unwritten, is a different matter. And I'm pretty sure if the shit hits the fan, they would potentially overcome the certain things. But so far as I've seen, in terms of the ability for government to come and take a shit, stuff, food, whatever, it's basically they can take the stuff from the companies. So if they are producers of the wheat, the grain, the livestock, that kind of thing. So if there is a famine and if there's an emergency, people need fed, apparently there's a law there that they can come and rescue or take the stuff from the companies and then distribute it to be it average folk, I don't know, but technically the point is this thing, they're actually able to take this and then distribute this in the emergency. There was nothing they said about the personal stashes, if you wish, but that makes me wonder, when kind of shit hits the fan, right, if you know things are really, really uneasy, do you think we are, as a preppers, are under the headline, or not headline, but the short line of government or some other secret ops coming and taking our crap? And
it's a good point. I'm constantly being told on my comments and by various people that you're on a list. Don't put yourself on a government list. Don't get a driving license. Don't get an amateur radio license. You'll be put on a list. And it's like, oh, good grief. You know, if somebody wants to know where I live, then the government know where I live. You know,
they do. They already know a lot of stuff about you.
Unless you want to live in a hole and not drive, do you drive around? You know, I wonder if these people drive around with no registration plates. You know,
some people do.
But really, you know, I mean, come on. I mean, I'd recommend anyone who's interested in that side of things just read the Civil Contingencies Act, which is on the .gov website. I was led to that by my amateur radio group, and you know, I'm part of kind of a response group that it talks about in that Contingencies Act. And there's nothing. You're quite right. There's nothing there about, you know, taking people's personal stuff. However, if it got really, really, really bad, what you'd probably find is corrupt government officials or corrupt police. If they found out that you had loads of stuff, they'd probably come and help themselves.
But could we then like have them, you know, considering there be technically no rules, no
Well, yeah, if you've got corrupt police or corrupt government officials coming into your home, then that I would consider as no rule of law.
Which SHTF happened already.
Everything goes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But we got to be careful what we talk about. But you know,
of course, absolutely. Yeah. But just maybe the only reason I said this,
situation, you defend yourself, and you make sure that you know, obviously, as most preppers that I've come across have some form of defence, even though we don't have any legal way of defending ourselves in the UK.
That's a bummer, though, isn't it? But
apart from a personal attack alarm, which is useless. But I know that, you know,
and a homemade pepper spray.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not even allowed to use those. So
homemade one you can, apparently.
Oh, can you? Homemade.
Apparently, because I've been, you know, I did the video for the EDC and they had the pepper spray there. My goodness, for the protection of me, people obviously said like be really careful. But apparently, oh my god, this is like the worst thing you could possibly do. But again, in the SHTF, you only use this when a really pretty shitty scenario. You kind of just do what you got to do, don't you? Yeah, especially if you then don't have to explain yourself to anybody. But
I think you can make your own. If there's no rule of law, then there's a majority of preppers I would have thought would have something much more lethal than a pepper spray. Yeah.
Yeah. But do you think, like, you know, you were saying about the people coming in and stuff. I'm like, I said to my other half, it's like, okay, I feel like I want to hide, and I've seen it wasn't related to prepping, but it was the like a little video on the Instagram, I think. It just generally how to hide stuff from thieves type thing, and the little stuff. And the idea is these people come up with like having a secret doors and secret things. I'm like, I'd rather like the idea to, just in case, like, you know, again, we're preparing for the SHTF if you can. Having the ideas of be able to kind of hide stuff. It's kind of
it's a good idea. It's something you got to think about. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, if it's Ray Mears, when he spoke at the Bushcraft show, I don't know if you've watched his. I missed it live, but I've watched.
No, the Bushcraft. No,
watched
not
the
live.
full
No.
stream of when he was talking, and he was talking as if to say you need to get prepped. Something's going to happen, right? And he had a sense of urgency about him, and there was a kid in the audience asked him and said, "Gosh, you've been all over the world, Ray, and you've done all these things, and you've been bitten by snakes and stuff like that. You must fear loads of things. You must be fearful of loads of things." And he said, "No, I'm not fearful of anything. Actually, with my experience, I don't fear anything. The only thing I fear is other people." And that I found
makes
was
sense,
really
doesn't
interesting.
it?
Yeah, because in something really major happening, it's the people you've got to worry about. Look at just during all the lockdown and all the queues at the supermarkets, people starting to turn on each other, and it only took a few days. But imagine that intensity, if it was really ramped up, got to several weeks or whatever, where people couldn't get hold of food. People are going to turn on you and all this sort of thing. So I've said in my videos before, do you know how to remove your stairs and live upstairs and take all of your stash upstairs so that you can defend yourself from above?
Remove your stairs. How do you remove your stairs?
I've seen that in there's a book called, I think it was a book called Left of Bang by a military guy. Really intense book about keeping your head on a swivel and being very aware of your situation around you and stuff. And I think in that it talks about literally know how to get your stairs removed, get upstairs, get into a room, have a plan, bring everything into that room so you can actually defend yourself from upstairs and block up the windows and all that kind of thing. It's pretty extreme stuff, but if you've got hordes and hordes of people who are hungry and murderous and ready to do anything, and there's no law to back you up, what are you going to do? You're not going to bug out, because people will be tripping over you wherever you go. And I mean, I did a radius around my area. Half of it's in the sea, so I'm a bit lost there. Where else am I going to go to bug out? There's like a few hedgerows, a few gardens, so I'm better off bugging in. And it's what you're going to do when you do bug in, when they're bashing at the door trying to get in. What on earth do you do? So hide away is a good idea.
You do. But the only thing that worries me, though, with the not giving people idea, but when you're in there, if you remove stairs, people get in there. Fire is the way to smoke you out, isn't it? That's the thing that really. It's the Oh, sorry, Lee just said that. Sorry, what happens when they set fire to the house? Sorry, exactly my point. That's the kind of thing that's smoking the people out, isn't it? There was somebody a few years back. It was a personal attack on somebody when they put not a smoke grenade, but something with a fire through the letterbox, and they set the house on fire. And I think the guy died. It was a revenge on something pathetic, like a pub fight or something like that. But that's really scary part. You got to almost feel like you got to barricade your windows and stuff with a metal just to stop the stuff coming in, isn't it? It's ridiculous, really, to what extent your mind would wander to kind of.
It's horrible to have to think about these things, and Lee's absolutely right. And Lee, I know Lee. Lee's he's pretty hardcore, and he does
this Lee just now here, not the other Lee, that Lee on the video.
But he's thinks about real extreme things that could happen, and they could happen. And sometimes it's even as a prepper, it's sometimes hard to think. I need to think about the other side of things as well, the people side of things, and how things can turn. A lot of people don't think about that. It's very easy to just put, I'll put 3 days of food away, put 3 days of water away. But then when everything really goes to town, what are you going to do? And that's when you got to think of a proper escape plan. Like somebody said in the comments, I think, bug in. Oh, that's it. With Nelly on the land, bug in for me with a way out. So they set fire to your house. You've boarded up all the windows. Make sure you've still got an escape route.
A way to go out. Yeah.
And you might have to just cut and run. Literally. It'd be a horrible situation, but.
I know. Let's hope it never comes to that. But
no.
What do you think? Just obviously, you've got to mention the elephant in the room about the stupid government thing, though. What's your It's I know it's like a grey area because everybody has their own opinion and thoughts. Like, this is like a lot of just nonsense, this and that. What do you reckon?
What do you mean?
Do you reckon this is because obviously they've been preparing this for the past well, 6 years really, and the whole website is absolutely shambles. For 6 years of preparedness, it's absolutely diabolical to what they've created. And then because the fact they warned us in October, which I've done a video and they're saying to you, I think it's something a bit fishy going on. And people are like, oh no, we thought it's just there to you know, kind of scare people to see the response, that kind of thing. And now they've done this again. What do you reckon? What do you think? Do you think this is just a general thing to be kind of aligned with the EU into general preparedness, or do you reckon there's more things there that kind of telling us or not telling us indirectly to prepare people that are actually in tune with the thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of people who said that oh, they're just, don't worry, they're just bringing it in line to Estonia, Finland, and Sweden, and
Germany, France,
yeah, absolutely, all of Europe, and the US. The US do this quite a lot. They do this quite regularly in various states. But the fact they've done it a second time, I'm personally now of the opinion that they do believe something is going to happen, and I think it's more on a war footing. I don't think they suddenly think that there's going to be, you know, I was thinking about all the scenario. What scenarios could it be? And you know, in most of my videos, I try to not sensationalize stuff. I try to look at it from a reasonable point of view, and I try to look at the facts and look at the actual what's going on here. Is this really likely to happen? Now, my biggest concern at the moment is war.
Yeah,
and
I think for many, Mike, it's got to be.
Yeah, and you know, and there's no way of playing that down. You know, and I've got some videos where I'm going to be talking about this, but I think that the fact they've done it a second time, they probably want to make it look like they've done something.
Yeah.
3 days.
We told you so type thing, yeah.
Yeah, 3 days is useless. You know, if things go nuclear, you're going to need 2 weeks. Now, I put 3 days of food away in a shelter room, and 3 days of food, and this is just tins and pasta, which is going to lead me on to a question for you in a minute. So 3 days of just tins, pasta, and rice. Forget the water. The water I've got, but for 4 people, and I've put it in one of these big food keep warm bags. You know, my famous Just Eat bag. Right?
Yeah.
So I've got tons of things, right? I've got loads of tins. We've got 2 meals a day in there for 4 people for 3 days, and that's just 2 meals a day. Now, bear in mind, if everything kicks off, you're going to need a lot more than 2 meals a day. You're going to need a lot more calories as an adult, because you're going to be stressed. You're going to be doing a lot more physical activity and everything else.
Not if you're just hibernating in the room for a couple of days for whatever reason. Generally wouldn't, but
no, not necessarily. Yeah, I mean, if it's nuclear and you're having to board up the windows and masking tape or gaffer tape and all that sort of stuff, then
crack up a bottle of wine, mate. That's what I mean.
Crack it open and hope for the best. Yeah. But the point was, it was a lot of stuff, and you know, to get a year's worth of that, I'd have to have 100 of those bags full to the brim, plus water. So to get a year's, you know, it's all right, preppers going, oh yeah, get a year's worth, you know, and I'd always recommend try and get a year's worth. And I did at one point, I had about a year's worth of food. But you know, MREs, they call it the liquid cans, don't they? MREs are the same sort of thing, unless it's dried food.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask you, because that's something I haven't got into. I haven't done for long-term storage. Is dried food. Now, my understanding is that can last a long time.
Yeah.
Hell of a long time. Yes, you'd have to hydrate it. You'd have to use probably a lot more energy to heat it, or could you just eat it as it is? I don't know. So what would your recommendation be for someone like me who hasn't gone into drying food or storing dried food? Where do you start?
Well, for the start, with the 3 days thing, I would like yourself. When I had my preparedness panic, which was about a few months back, I've had the same. When I had the room, like yourself, had the room ready where it's going to be your kind of a fallout room, if you wish. And I literally took up the drawer and I filled up the stuff with things that are easy to eat, like ready-made pastas, already like the little John West little thingies there, and the wine, and you know, snacks, just everything there to last us for 3 days, calorie-wise, without have to be needing to cook it. As for say again.
From tins, then.
Not tins, no, just stuff. Because if you think about it, if you're there, that's just purely my approach. If you're there in the room, right, and you think that, say, the nuclear thing gone off, you're in the room like, I don't really want to eat a cold tin. Let's drink some wine. Let's drink some, have some biltong. Let's have some sort of the stuff that you like. This is totally just my personal approach to, if you're stuck in a room there, I don't really want to eat the tin peas and carrots and that sort of thing to give me that. No, because you don't know if this is your last 3 days of a decent time, if that makes sense, or decent ability just to comprehend what has been happening. So just fuck it. Just, do you know what I mean? Just enjoy it for what you have. That's you have there. Further on, obviously, it's different matter. But if you're talking about what would you start with the dehydrating? Is that what you dehydrating foods?
Yeah, because when I look at, I mean, does dehydrating food, will it massively reduce? Will it provide me what I'd need, but also would it massively reduce the storage amount, the amount of room that I'd need to store all this stuff? Because, do you see what I mean? Because at the moment, 3 days worth of tins for 4 people is one great huge lot of tins and pasta and rice. Now, regardless of what it's for, if I wanted to do, say, 2 weeks of that, it's going to be a massive load of storage. So obviously the pastas and rices you can put into crates and barrels, and that's what I've done. So we have got a lot of that to bulk things out. But would dried food significantly reduce the amount of storage room that you would need?
To be fair, I wouldn't say it will significantly reduce the storage, but it will reduce the amount of time if you were to have an ability to rehydrate the stuff that you have. It's like I've done, again, multiples of videos on the dehydrating rices and pastas. And basically with the rice, have to boil this for, like, say, 12 minutes or whatever, don't you? It's 12, 14 minutes. The same with the pasta. With the dehydration, I cook it, I drain this, I dehydrate this, and then again, all you have to do is just add on some boiling water and your stuff hydrated within rice, especially within 5 minutes, just with the lid closed, say, on a normal jar. You don't really need to. You don't need to boil this. You don't need to do anything to it, but you still need to have a hot water.
Right.
With the pasta, it's slightly longer. You dehydrate this. Again, it takes, say, 4 or 5 hours, but rehydration takes about 20 minutes with the hot water, ideally in a thermal cup. So I have, as a preparedness part, I have that as well. It was my aim for this year because of the solar activity, but we can come back to that in a minute, because we know it's kind of a weird subject now. It's a touchy, not so touchy, but it's a bit, we both look at this in a similar way, aren't we, I think, but we'll come back to that in a second. But if the grid goes down, and of course you might not have ability to boil stuff for 14, 15 minutes to boil your pastas or rices, just boil the water. I know it takes still a little while, but you're able to boil enough to make yourself a couple of meals. Put this in a thermal cup, like many of my viewers suggested as well, and you can sit there for your main meal and then for the meal after, because it will keep this hot for that kind of time. In the fallout room, obviously we are limited, aren't we, to what you can have, unless you can have a kind of heating element, but obviously you would assume that you will have to block all the airflow, aren't we, from the room, if that's what we're doing. But this space wise, to be fair, the best advice, I think, if you wanted to have stuff, the vegetables or anything dehydrated to give you the nutritional value, is you dehydrate this and then you basically make it into the powder. It's like, again, a cover that you can have. I dehydrated recently a lot of mushrooms, and it will take it take a lot of space to have, like, say, 2-3 kilos of mushrooms. Once you pulverize it into the powder, you might just take this teeny weeny bit in the jar. And the point is, if you're looking at this as a nutritional value, all you've got to do is to take a teeny weeny, like half a tablespoon, and they give you as much as a whole handful of mushrooms do. Wow. If that makes sense. So that's the only thing really that will save you things. The same thing I do with spinach and that kind of collard greens, or in Americans, or say cabbages and kale. They dehydrate super fast, but if you just put them in the jar, they take uber amount of space. Like nobody has a space to stock kilos and kilos of that. However,
sorry to interrupt, the example of the mushrooms, the powder, how long would that last? How long would that store for?
If you put this in with the oxygen absorber in a Mylar bag, it'll last you pretty much indefinitely, providing they're dry to a crisp. Like with anything you ever dehydrate, providing it's super dry, you are literally, it's world's your oyster. You can put this in your glass jar if you don't want to have the oxygen absorbers or Mylar bags. You can use the little double lid jars, right? The canyon jars. And you can use the vacuum sealer if you got one, or still oxygen absorber, and it will sit there. So long as it's in a cupboard or in a dark room, it'll last you forever.
That's the other thing with tins. You've got to rotate them. Although we found out, when I opened up some tins that were sort of 4 or 5 years old, and I've been eating those ever since. They're absolutely fine. And everyone in the chats on my videos has said, yeah, we've tried tins, for 10 years old, and it's absolutely fine. So I know that you don't necessarily have to rotate them, but if you've got stuff that's
No.
indefinite, then that's got to be better, surely. So I think
but I gotta say this with the tins, there's a massive divide. There is I've got the Facebook group, and people the question was posed in terms of about why would you have this stuff if you can't rotate it? What kind of thing about this? Why people eat 10 years out of date tins? Well, first of all, because they do last that long, and secondly, not everybody. If you think tins, right, you can literally get anything in the tin. Well, so far we have an ability to get, although the options are diminishing really fastly. You can get anything you want, but I don't want to eat the processed meat on a daily basis. Like, I don't want to eat spam. I don't want to eat the corn, whatever it's called. Like, there's so many of them there, or the bacon grill, or it's saved us through into the bushcraft show. But not everybody wants to eat that kind of stuff right away. People are like, well, why do you want to store this? Because you have to rotate this. Well, to be fair, I'm all for rotation for certain stuff if you use that. But at the same time, I'm like, if the stuff that everybody likes fresh meat, if you can afford to order, it's really expensive now. But I don't want to eat tinned meat every day, and I choose not to obviously for health reasons. But I still would like to stock up on the fake meat, if you wish, tinned meat, because when there's nothing to eat, you're goddamn gonna appreciate your tin of spam, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Which is what it is. And rotation to me in certain stuff, yes, you occasionally take a tin for something, but rotation in those instances, it kind of is irrelevant. But it's
the worry is with tins, you've got stuff that's been preserved. So obviously, where it's been preserved, it might be more salty and it's less nutritional, over time. But are we saying that, because if there's going to be a lack of fresh produce, because there won't be any supermarkets in an absolute SHTF situation, there'll be no supermarkets. They'll all be shuttered down very, very quickly, I think. And in fact, I saw a lot of the supermarkets having big metal shutters installed during the pandemic lockdowns, probably for the next time that they needed to do that. Because,
pandemic,
absolutely. So are we saying that something like a mushroom powder that's stored, it's fully dehydrated, stored indefinitely, would give you the kind of same nutrition that you might get from fresh produce?
Anything you dehydrate, be it vegetables or mushrooms, fungi in this instance, will keep up to 95% of their nutritional value, providing you dehydrate this at the correct temperature, and then you store the stuff correctly. Although in a way it gives you not 100% the same texture, but again, I've done a test, and I think I mentioned to you, I've dehydrated some carrots and broccoli, put them through like a food processor, so small pieces that dehydrate really fast, and then we dried them, and then I've done this for the video, and then my husband tried that, and it rehydrates to something that looks very fresh, very vibrant, and it still gives you 95% of the value that you have. So with the mushrooms, again, mushrooms are quite good in terms of protein, so they almost have, not say like for like, but very close to the protein in red meat. So especially for people that don't have or ever eat, say, meat, that's why the mushroom comes in terms of the protein, because they actually got quite a lot of protein in that. So to me, mushrooms are like a holy grail of something that I would love to have. And again, like everybody will have space issues to store the food, and I'm coming to like, okay, I'll have some pieces of mushrooms, but I'm going to powder them and then mile them, because then I can keep, literally, honestly, you can probably keep 20 kilos of mushrooms after you dehydrated them into a small little miler bag, and they will last you, if you think how long it will take you to eat 20 kilos of mushrooms in your thing, yes, it's not a substance, but flavor and the nutritional value and the protein that's in them, and that comes for many, many other things. I'm experimenting at the moment with many things, and I promised I did the things on the channel with dehydrating like calamari and tinned fish and chickens and stuff like that. But chicken is a bit, but you
so
do this for the dog.
The key for me or anyone else wanting to get started in dehydration is watch your videos.
Yeah, it's a lot of them. A dehydration. I know you have to scroll through like almost 500 videos, but this is in the in my little playlist and stuff. But it is, I think, people somewhat scared. I think with anything, whatever you start, like with a solar, I think we looked at it first and we were like, oh, because you don't know if you can do something wrong that's going to be really hurtful to something, or you're going to ruin something. When the people start dehydrating or canning, people are like, oh, they want to do this. What if I do something wrong? So what the worst going to happen? Well, with the dehydrating, the worst thing is going to happen. You dehydrate something, you don't dehydrate it enough, and it goes moldy, but you'll know about it.
Yeah.
Or another thing, you dehydrate it too much, and then it goes all brown, and you lose all the nutrients. None of these are fatal. You can still live with it. You can still. It's not an option. It's not an issue. You can still give it a go without worrying about it.
That's good. Yeah.
But it's not. I strongly suggest, and I think it's really been really underestimated a lot with people, because people are like, oh, well, how do you do it? And the dehydrators, you can pick them up for like £40, 40 to 60 pounds. You can get the basic ones, and it doesn't have to be expensive. I've gone through my little Andrew James one. It was 12 years old, and it was still going. But I got my Excalibur now, and I'm certainly giving it a run for its money when I load it up. But people have to start. I think it's a good in terms of it's perfect, lightweight. If you do have to get the hell out, I've created again. Yeah. I've got some, like a bag of bags. Obviously, I've got this. We cover this on the channel, and everybody, I'm pretty sure, have something. But on the top of my bag, I have a bag of food. Like literally, I have my MRE kit of 5,000 or 4,000 calories that I made, just ready for 3 days for 3 of us in another bag. Yes, it's another bag, but come on, let's be fair. I know people said, well, if you have to walk far, your bag have to be comfortable. You can't be too heavy. Do you know what? Sod it. If you have to leg it, you have to go. You can't get a bloody bag.
Yeah. Hopefully you won't need it, but
no. But adrenaline will get you. Adrenaline will get you through. It's just what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, but no, if you haven't started, and anybody who haven't started, I think it's a good thing to do. You literally dehydrate anything. So.
Yeah, brilliant.
So yeah. Have you done anything dehydrating wise, or?
No. I mean, you talk about mushrooms. I'm into foraging mushrooms, wild mushrooms, and I mentioned it on a video a while back, and I had a comment on there from someone saying, "Oh, don't bother with it's you." I don't know exactly what they said.
What, with foraging?
They said it's not worth the effort because of the risk. The risk reward is too low. And my answer to that, I didn't bother answering it, but my answer to that now is yes, totally worth it, because it doesn't take much. It's just learning a new skill. That's all it is, learning a new skill. There are plenty of wild mushrooms in the UK that grow that cannot be mistaken for anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you know, and you obviously know what you're talking about. So, but for somebody new, there are new routes for new people to go down where you can't make a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to venture out into sort of more tastier mushrooms and more elegant kind of mushrooms, then you've got to be a little bit more careful. But there are, once you learn exactly where the mycelium, which trees the mycelium goes with, and where the mushroom, you just learn a little bit of detail. It doesn't take a lot, just knowing your trees, knowing your mushrooms, because they're all symbiotic. And you can pick mushrooms in the UK and eat them fresh with no worries of getting poisoned. So without venturing, and you've got quite a wide range, haven't you, of mushrooms that you can eat, that you don't have any lookalikes that you have to be careful of. So it's absolutely worth it. And in the event of a real SHTF, that's going to give you a brilliant source of fresh food. That other people, majority of other people,
no.
So it'll be there for the taking, because they'll be all taking the poisonous stuff, and we won't.
Yeah, but no, I absolutely agree. I think, but a lot of this that people do, this is kind of, to me, is a part of this scaremongering, if that makes sense. It's like, oh, you beer, mate.
Sorry, it's an alcohol-free cider. Well, you're at a party, you haven't had a drink yet.
No, I'm on a cider.
Oh, yeah, well done.
Yeah, but no, to me, this kind of thing it's a part of the scaremongering. It's like, oh my God, you can't do this. It kind of gives, because if you're a bit iffy to start with, if somebody will then tell you, oh my God, they're so dangerous, you're gonna, oh, do you know what? I'm gonna leave this alone. I'm gonna learn something else. But to me, this is wrong, because it's literally
laziness.
I can.
It's laziness. So what are you going to do then? What's your plan then? Surely arming yourself to the hilt is one thing, but arming yourself with knowledge and skills is another thing. And so, you know, I think if you can arm yourself with all of those things,
even better off.
Yeah, why wouldn't you try and stack the odds in your favour just by putting the boat out a little bit out of your comfort zone and learning some extra skills that might be a little bit new, but you know, when you find that you actually embark on these skills, it's like with the dehydration. You know, that for me is one of those things I've been scared to do, just because it feels like it's a big learning curve. But I could probably do it. I just need to allocate some time to doing it. That's all. Yeah.
Don't forget we said about the same people taking stuff. Like anybody can take your crossbow away, but they can't take your knowledge away. That's the point.
Yeah.
Not saying you don't have to have crossbow or any other self-defense, because you have to, I think, if you're truly prepping. But nonetheless, I think it's one of those. And as well with the mushrooms, there is truly a very again, don't take my word for it, but there are very little mushrooms that are truly fatal, if that makes sense. That are truly poisonous and actually fatal.
UK,
there are a lot of mushrooms that are not good and might make you upset, but very little that will kill you. Don't take my word for it. Disclaimer there. I'm just saying that this, you have to do your own research, but there's a very little that actually truly poisonous that will kill you.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
if you do make a mistake, generally you could, again, disclaimer.
So at the beginning, stay clear of the amanitas, but a lot of those are edible still, aren't they? So
yeah, but it's like morels. You can't mistake a morel for anything else. It's a brain on the stick, right?
Yeah, right.
If you know what the brain looks like, that's it. You're there. You had it. And it costs absolute yeah, and it costs absolute fortune. But you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So talking about the solar stuff, right? And
so what are you talking? You mean solar power, or are you talking about solar?
No, I think I will move on, because obviously we both have the solar stuff, and I've gone through and I know many subscribers as well, kind of looking into the solar, having a solar preparedness, if you wish, having the ability to be able to do stuff like that. And then I've gone through the stage like when I went like the thing that they've been scaring us for 2024 solar activity, and I'm like, I created myself a pellet case, and I kind of made it into the EMP proof, and then we've got the metal box in the van, which seemed to be do so far by itself a good job of that. And I'm thinking, well, really, what are the cases? What are the chances, in fact, of this? What we've been fed, and I know it's a little bit controversial, but the things they've been saying to us, everything the government tells us or feed us is kind of almost in the preparedness of us receiving something further on. So we've been fed with the cyber attacks, and obviously the new world order and the 2030 the agenda. You own nothing, you be happy, and all really that only possibly can happen if we have a grid down situation for a certain amount of time in a correct way done. So solar activity, the question was to you, so initially, how would we protect or possibly protect our solar equipment from that? But at the same time, do you believe that solar activity is it's true, or do you think potentially that we've been fed like I think we've been fed that?
Excuse my dog in the background.
It's happening?
Yeah, I mean that's a rabbit hole that we could go down. There's a lot of conspiracy in there, isn't there? You know, are we weapons free now? Are we? So, solar like a CME or a solar flare that would take out the national grid. It doesn't worry me.
No.
I know that we're coming up to a solar maximum. I'm aware that the sun has a cycle where it changes its magnetic north to south every 11 years.
This is what we've been told, though, isn't it, Steve? Technically, this is all we've been told by whoever we've been told this by, isn't it?
Yeah, but then there's amateur astronomy that I'm part of groups in, because I've got a nice telescope, and I enjoy looking at the stars and the planets and stuff. Especially Jupiter and its moons and things like that. And there's amateur astronomers that can verify a lot of all this. So I agree with. However, we keep being told that this new solar flare is almost as big as the Carrington the solar flare was the Carrington event. Well, the Carrington event, we didn't have half the infrastructure that we have now. They're saying that, because we've got so much reliance on electronics, if we had a Carrington event, it would take out everything. Well, we don't know that. We don't know that for sure. We don't know.
It was 1859, wasn't it? Was it 1859?
Like that, yeah. So apparently it set fire to the surge set fire to certain power transformers and that kind of stuff. Now, you know, we have some of the infrastructure has changed, some of it hasn't changed. So we don't know that for sure. But we keep being told that this thing is going to disrupt satellites and everything else. Well, the only time I've had problems with my GPS is when there's a new development on the war front. And that's when GPS has either been hacked by one of the enemy sides, or where the British government will allocate more GPS signal to our military, and then you'll see from a citizen point of view that we can't seem to access it very well. So that's government. That's not a CME.
Yeah.
And then I read the other day that there was this massive solar flare or massive solar activity on Mars, which they were saying, oh, if an astronaut was on Mars at the time, he would have got 30 times an X-ray. It would have been like having 30 X-rays in one day. But he would have survived it, and it wouldn't have caused him too much problem. So, so they're talking about, you know, oh, if this happened on Earth, it would be absolutely dreadful. It's like, well, hold on a sec. We've got a Mars orbiter, which is a spacecraft going around, which has got very, very sensitive electronics on. And you've got these rovers on there that even picked up footage of the aurora on Mars. And none of their electronics went down either. So I'm very skeptical as to whether a CME would really be the biggest threat to us. What worries me more is an enemy weapon. For instance, the Americans have developed missiles now that can literally fly very low past an office building and emit an EMP that will take out, and they've tested this and it works, and it will take out all the computers in that building. So, you know, and it's guaranteed that there'll be spies. So that technology will be transferred over to other countries. So the Russians will have it. China will probably have it. You know, if they haven't already, then they're going to have it at some point. So a missile could fly around or across the country, emitting these pulses and taking out various bits of infrastructure. So that's, for me, more of a threat. Excuse me, I'm just going to kick my dog out.
That's okay. That's all right. Don't worry.
Sorry.
I like it. The guys having a conversation between themselves. That's great. The guys are just having a conversation.
Oh, no, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Have we upset anyone yet?
I don't think so. We haven't upset anybody yet. There's nothing that we're talking about.
We're all good. Anything we can pick up on. But that for me, that's you know, that's not really a big worry. Part of the response group that I'm in from the amateur radio group is the whole focus is on a national power outage. So they are expecting something.
Is that for a reason? For a reason, do you think? Because it's literally they have some intel, or
I've not been given any intel at all.
But do you think they have been?
I don't think so. But I think the whole infrastructure in the UK of our water sewage systems, our water systems, water cleaning systems, is all breaking down. You know, look how many people now, even in Devon, still they have
with the water.
Some of them are still on a boil water measures.
That's been a while, though, isn't it?
Weeks. We've got Sittingbourne, which is North Kent is under a. I'm not sure if it's boil water, but they've got to do something with their water. They've lost pressure. There's all sorts of things going on all around Kent and all the southern water companies. So it's a mess, total mess. And that's why I got one of those British Berkfield filters. They're brilliant, absolutely superb, and the water tastes great.
It's funny that with the water, because I've seen this. Obviously, we're seeing this in the news, and I'm pretty sure that I've seen this in the other countries as well now. And you know, when you, as a prepper, you evaluate, or I evaluate. I see the information and it goes into my brain, and like I got to ponder on this and kind of like have to think about it. And I've seen some in Europe having the same issues. And how come, seriously, been following the news for a very long time, not you know, mainstream news, if that makes sense. You know, don't watch BBC, that kind of shit, but generally. And then suddenly all this happens. It happens here, and suddenly all the Europe comes up. They're saying, "Oh, we have issues with water." It's suddenly just spilled out that everybody has issue with water.
I wonder if they're testing things. I really don't know what is going on.
But it's peculiar, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very odd. Very odd.
It's very strange.
You know, the same may start to happen with the grids. You know, you might see little regional grids going down or something like that. I don't know.
It's been happening before, apparently. As in many of the time, I had people saying apparently they had the villages and things been out without the power for quite a while. Yeah. But the water is kind of it's a bit close to home without electricity, like sod it, you can make do. And by the
Yeah.
way, P.S. for anybody's watching, Aldi at the moment having a really good solar stuff, and we picked up some little solar lights, $7.99. Not your pull-outy thingy, but the little
Have they?
sweet little
Oh,
the
that's
little solar
yeah,
thing.
we got an Aldi.
$7.99. It's really flat, really tiny. But amazing, $7.99. They have some torches, all sorts. I would have bought all of them if I had the money. I'm like, some of this, some of that, some of that. But
it's such a good
but
idea. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But with the water stuff, sorry, coming back to that, I think so. I'm going to be doing a video on just to go through the water. I've done this like a year ago, but obviously I learned so much more as we do, guys. I pass the knowledge on, so people don't have to, like we all do, don't we? We learn stuff, we pass it on. That's the idea of the channels, isn't it? And but yeah, the water stuff, it's becoming a bit unnerving. Like I've bought one of those things like that goes in not in a bath, but it's a water storage bag for animals, if that makes sense. That goes in a wheelbarrow, and it's like I think I paid like a tenner delivered. It takes 80 liters. I've got see around me. I'm sitting here. I've got the pathway of water bottles, and I've stuck in literally water. Kid you not. And I suggest to people that if you guys watching, if you're worried about the water stuff, it's not just the drinking water, isn't it? It's not drinking, it's hygiene and other stuff as well. And the cooking water. In the bathroom, if you have a bathroom and you have ability to reuse one of those big 5-liter conditioning bottles, put the water in there to flush your toilet. Not the end of the world, because if you have water bottle, you can do this. But I've now been shoveling bottles, like 2-liter bottles, 5-liter bottles, behind the door, under the bath, under there, anywhere I can fit bottles of water. I'm just doing this. And I'm like, do you know what? It looks stupid. It made me look paranoid. But you know what? I don't care.
Well, it's very current, and you're right. You have to focus on what's going on at the moment, and as a prepper, you get to a point where you've got a lot of food stashed away, you've got a lot of water stashed away, you've got lots of medication and various meds. I mean, I could treat people for quite a long time with all the meds and other bits and pieces I've got. I won't go into it now.
We know we were going to, Steve.
over the years, you store up a lot of stuff, right? And it's very easy to build up a whole load of gear. So you're pretty much prepped for any scenario. So then, as a prepper, as a non-beginner prepper, what do you then start looking at? Well, you then start to look at what's the most current, biggest threat.
Yeah.
And I personally am starting to think the biggest threat is either conventional or nuclear war, with NATO and Russia. Now, I could be wrong. A lot of people will tell me that I'm wrong. But when you look at over the last 2-3 months, each day what's been happening. With all the the things all the different troops being moved around and various missiles being moved around and stuff that's going on, to me that presents a threat. So I am not fully prepared for nuclear war. So that's what I've been.
It's hard to prepare, though, isn't it?
Exactly. But I'm damned if I'm going to just sit there and watch it happen. So that's one thing I just need to add a little bit and enhance my preps. But you're absolutely right with water. That's why I got the filter, because although we store a hell of a lot of water, and we have the barrels of water, I've got tons of barrels of water in the garden that we collect off the roof, and we've got all the water purification tablets. We've got some other smaller filters, but with literally all around me. In fact, we're probably about the only area that hasn't got a boil water notice at the moment. Everywhere else, you got North Kent, you got the whole of south of England. Most of the south of England's got these problems in various pockets with their water. So that tells me there's going to be a water problem in my area.
Yeah, and you better be safe, because when they tell you, chances are you've already been circling through your system, though.
Yeah,
that's the thing. When they
so
spot
we
it,
only drink from our water filter now, and so any drinking water comes from there. And same with the dog. It tastes much better. But yeah, I wouldn't. I wanted to be prepared in case I get a text going, "You're on a boil water notice."
Do you know what I think? Talk about the water preparedness stuff. On the top of that, I've decided, I've got this on my Amazon shopping list, is the water test things, right? Test sticks, but also the ones that test for a bacteria. Because I've watched some videos, people doing this, and apparently, like, we've got the RBC tank. Obviously, you can take the water, but again, the roof is a roof from the chicken coop. It gets a bit of rust, it gets a bit of debris. We can't really clean this up properly, and you have a bacteria that grows there, or you could grow there. And I'm like, yes, you can correct rainwater from other things like a roof, but apparently not ceramic tiles, but the slate tiles again have a bacteria, so that's not good. And apparently, filters like our Berkeys or what we built, apparently it's not potentially something that are going to filter this 100%. So I'm like, okay, but that's considering the bacteria stuff. It's kind of really important thing. So I'm now a bit. I'm going to get a test, and I'm going to test my water from the IBC tank to see if there's got bacteria, which I'm sure it would do. And then I want to test whether the filter's actually able to remove the bacteria from that, because yes, you would boil this, but to some extent, some instances, if you are going through like the shortages, you just want to drink a bit of water, you kind of, I just want to know. I want to know what's in the water, the bacteria wise. But
so that's a really good idea, and I think that'd be a really handy thing to have, definitely. You know, and then if something comes up, then you can just throw a purification tablet in there.
Yeah, you could. I don't think purification tablets kill the bacteria though. I don't think they kill the live bacteria.
Well, some, they definitely kill some. I mean,
maybe,
boiling water is your best option, and
Yeah.
some of these Berkey filters are very, very good at they'll kill sort of 99%. One thing they won't do is take radiation out of water.
Yeah.
So,
but apparently, do you know what I actually read? I don't know if any of the viewers know. Apparently, radiation, because the one of the things to reflect the fallout is water, because water doesn't absorb the radiation, but it floats as particles. And I actually read somewhere. This is the power of internet, of the information that's out there. Apparently, you can filter radiation through the filter, not the radiation, the fallout, because it never contaminates water, because you can use water as a barrier because it doesn't absorb radiation. Okay. So the fallout will only just sits in it. So that's the thing. As a prepper, you got to do so much research of trying to actually figure out which information is actually correct.
That's the problem. Because you've found that information. I can guarantee you somewhere on the internet it will say completely opposite.
Exactly.
So
the best way, generally, you test yourself, but you can't test with the radiation.
Yeah. I think you know, for if you're worried about radiation, which you know is a concern for me, you know, it's like, okay, have I got 2 weeks worth of water that's not going to get contaminated? 2 weeks worth of water, so then you can start going outside, and the radiation levels are much lower, and then rainfall is going to be okay.
But it does push us in, doesn't it? With the rainfall, like people, again, it's something you have to cover in the different videos. But people assume, go to the streams. But with the fallout, the whatever it falls, it gets washed to the stream, and then the streams become contaminated, doesn't it? It's like totally different.
I think after 2 weeks, it's low enough to start. You know, being able to venture outside and maybe get some resources as well, like water. I think that would be okay after 2 weeks. The rainfall is okay.
It's hopefully guys. We really don't have to do that. But it's something I think it's on the forefront of many people's. I don't know if many. Shall we just pose this question whether any guys are watching actually have worry about? Do you reckon people worry about the nuclear more so?
I don't know. I reckon it's kind of 50-50 really.
Do you think?
But, you know,
anybody? Go. They're just having a chat between themselves.
Having a chat. Yeah, just carry on chatting, guys. You're doing really well.
Yeah. But no, it's a tricky one. I think at the moment, obviously, with all the other escalations there, it's a bit like, you know, what's your next step to do? So what's your, let's pose that there. What's your, without giving away too much info, what you do as a prepping part, what's your next step to, what's your next prepping step, shall I say? Do you have a plan to what you kind of want to do?
Yeah, I do, and I probably won't go into it now because I'm going to be doing a video on it. But
fair enough.
I've got some stuff that I want to cover, and I may be out of the picture for a little while as well, just because I've got some stuff that I need to prepare for. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I may not be able to make as many. I say as many videos as I have been. It's not like I make them every day, you know. Chuck one out once a week. Yeah. Lee says no to nuclear. Doesn't think no, not worried about nukes.
No, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, and you know, I think it's very 50-50. For me, it's a concern, and I've looked at you know, if there was originally I thought, okay, if the bombs were to drop in the UK, that'll be it, game over. And if I did survive it, then I wouldn't want to survive what's left.
No.
However, when I've looked into how tactical nukes work, and even some of the low yield strategic nukes, in the UK where I am, there could be a chance that I could survive. And actually, it will just be infrastructure that's taken out. So again, it will be the survivors that you want to be worried about, not the fallout. Because if you can manage the fallout for the first 48 hours, then 2 weeks,
You're sorted,
yeah, and then it's kind of rebuild after that. So it's not a massive concern, but I'm watching it. I'm keeping an eye on what's happening, but I'm not prepared for it if it was to happen. And so that's all I'm going to be doing over the next couple of weeks, is making sure that I've got a shelter room that's good enough, hopefully, for my family to get in, and because the government won't provide it. They're not going to provide nuclear shelters, like they did in the 60s and 70s when they put out their whole warning thing about what to do in the event of a nuclear attack. I've been watching some of that, and that's really quite interesting. It's quite
no, I've seen that.
And so it tells you there what to do. Have some, make sure you've got ways of managing waste and that kind of stuff. And once you've got all that squared away, then I know I'm covered. And I don't have to worry about it. So, it's been playing on my mind, and I don't want it to play on my mind. So what do? I prep for it, and then I just keep an eye on it. That's all. So that's all I'm doing. Whether
it's all we can do, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter with some people might think that that's absolutely not going to happen, and I used to think that. Now I think I'm not so sure, but that's my personal opinion, and so I'm going to just prep for it personally. That's all.
Yeah, but people got to understand that generally, just saying to you guys, the prepping journey is individual. We all think, that we preach, or not preach, but teach certain things to for people to learn stuff. But in the end of the day, we live in different areas, different families, different attitude, different mental states. We are so different, and because some of us feel like, okay, do you know what? That stage of life, say from 70 or 80, like nuke doesn't bother me because, well, what the hell? But with the people that have family, young family, you think, do you know what? I might want to, give it a go and try to kind of potentially survive, because in the end of the day, you can try and survive this. If something happens afterwards and you can't take it, there's the way out. There are the way out you can then take, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because you could kind of trying to understand that possibilities are that the people can survive. Yes, people say Chernobyl and it's like hundreds of years and things there. Well, still things are growing, fucking thriving in Chernobyl. If you have a look at the programs, after like a good 10, 20 years, things are like flourishing. It's kind of, it's bit a little bit of a conspiracy still thereafter. Yes, there have been people that obviously in their generations, but things are there. People can still grow stuff. People can eat stuff that's grown. People live there still. Some. It's one of those, and I think it's
so there's still availability to rebuild. There's still an option to rebuild. It's not all over.
Yeah. Depends, because it could take one nuke there, and then something else can happen. Nobody knows. But funny though, and I'm gonna say this because I obviously heard so much of it after the there's always an expert.
Sorry, Lee's off. He's going to go and get all the
sorry.
Food.
No. But yeah, there's always an expert on the nuke. People say, well, this is not going to happen. This is not how it works. But the fact is, nobody knows.
No, I'm not telling. No, if we all knew, we'd all be running for cover. I try to put that across in my videos. I'm not some sort of expert on solar. I'm not some sort of expert on comms. I'm just saying, here's what I do. Here's what, if it helps anyone, great. If I'm completely wrong, then I know what works for me.
Yeah.
I know what works for me. But that might not work for someone else. I remember doing one video on some bits and pieces, and I had a couple of comments saying, "Well, what about if I'm in a small flat, in a high rise?" And I'm like, I have no idea.
Don't know how to deal with it. No, exactly.
Totally different situation. God, what would I do? I'm really fortunate. I've got chickens in my backyard, providing eggs. I've got a bit of land, and and my own house, and I can wire it up with 12-volt lighting and all that sort of stuff. But if I was in a flat, I don't know what I'd do. I know.
I'll climb the walls with the tins, literally top to ceiling, clad it with the tins.
Well, you'd have to do something. And that's all you can do. Is you say you start somewhere, but you got to start somewhere. But you're right. Everyone's situation is totally different.
Yeah. Anyway, so shall we leave it at that then? So anybody else got any questions, guys, for me or Steve for the moment, or they just happily just chit chat between themselves.
They're all having a good get together, aren't they?
Good on that, yeah. Happy Father's Day to anybody, by the way. There.
Yeah, happy Father's Day to any
us on the
fathers out there.
Say what?
I said happy Father's Day to any fathers out there. I'm just trying to see if there's anything. There's no questions on it. There's no questions. Everyone's no.
I think they're just there chatting,
We're
not
on a
listening
good
to us
chat.
at all.
Yeah, brilliant.
I'm listening. I'm Lily. Okay, well, yeah, well, I guess we'll leave it at that then. Well, it was really nice talking to you, Steve.
Yeah, you too.
I'm sure we can do this again and chat about something else. We said light-hearted chat about the soul, and then we just digressed into.
I know, but then we went down
else,
a rabbit hole. We got all serious. Yeah. I know.
Well, preppers, that's what we do, right?
Exactly. Yeah, too right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, guys, well, hopefully you'll enjoy that. Well, thank you very much, Steve, for being here. Really nice talking to you, and I'm sure we'll speak to you sometime really soon again.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk about something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Take care.
Then. See you later, guys.
See you everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.